Okay, I've never done this before, but something happened today that's kind of left me no choice, really. Now, I know nobody will probably watch this, and that's fine. I'm doing it for my own sanity. So, I've been a big Sylvester Stallone fan um, pretty much my whole life, really, since I fell in love with, predictably, the Rocky films as a kid, um, First Blood. Um, but today I saw Rambo Last Blood, uh, and I need to talk about it. So spoilers ahead, in case, like I say, I really don't expect anybody to watch this, but fuck it, you know. So spoilers ahead. So if you haven't seen it, uh, don't watch. But I'd say don't watch the film because it's vile. It's fucking the worst film I've seen since The Sex Lives of the Potato Man. God, my head looks so animated. Anyway, so John Rambo, a character that I really sort of fell in love with, that I was rooting for. You know, he went to Vietnam, he came back, he had PTSD, and he couldn't find a home. So he wandered around, First Blood, uh, looking for his old army buddies, and he found out that they'd all died. So he was kind of alone in the world. And then this king shit cop in the little town, gave him shit, triggered him. So he sort of escaped and kind of, through his own ingenuity, managed to survive in the hills for a few days until he was eventually brought in by his old mentor, Colonel Troutman, Sam, um, Uncle Sam. And he went to prison. Troutman came to prison and said, look, there's a mission, go into Vietnam where we want you to take photos of POWs that were left behind. And if you do it, you'll get out of jail. So Rambo kind of reluctantly agrees. He asked Colonel Troutman, do we get to win this time? And Colonel said, this time it's up to you. It was really up to this prick called Murdoch. So he goes to Vietnam and, he gets shafted because, as they should have known, he decides to break a prisoner of war out, and this won't do for the political people. So they leave him behind, and he gets tortured, and he, escapes, goes on a mildly violent rampage, kills some of the Russians that weren't in Vietnam at that time, but as a 16-year-old kid, those politics didn't matter. It was like he's been fucked over, and it was very influential to me, and I was rooting for him. So he busts them out. He lost someone who could have been very significant to him. He made it back to the to the airbase in Thailand, I believe, and he told Murdoch that he needed to go and find the POWs. That wouldn't have happened in real life, but he did all he could. And Troutman said, what do you want? Because you might get a second Medal of Honor for this. And he said he just wants his country to love the soldiers as much as they love it. And a lot of people scoffed at that. And I thought that was, as a kid, I thought that was quite beautiful. Cheesy, a bit like the politics at the end of Rocky IV. But I thought his heart was in the right place. And I thought it's kind of a simple message, but a sort of supportive message to troops that had come back from Vietnam and been, called baby killer and all that kind of crap, as he says at the end of First Blood. And he wandered off into the distance. He wandered off into wherever we might find him. A few years later, Troutman's asked to lead a mission into Afghanistan, which at the time was occupied by the Russians. And he finds Rambo, who's living in a monastery. We'll find out in episode 5, as I'm going to call it, that his time in the monastery was fucking meaningless. It was pointless. He learned, it would seem, nothing about Zen or, peace or harmony. He was obviously looking for peace, but war kept finding him. So Troutman came and said, come to Afghanistan with me, and Rambo said, I'm done. I'm staying here. Troutman goes in, gets captured, and Rambo sort of goes in alone to free his friend, which he does, more sort of 80s, whatever, cheesy violence. First Blood, I think, is close to a masterpiece. And Rambo 2 and 3, they really fucked up the names, because you've got First Blood, and then you've got Rambo First Blood Part 2. It makes sense. But then you've got Rambo 3. It's okay, we know it's the third one, but really, shouldn't that have been Rambo First Blood Part 3? Anyway, Rambo 3, so First Blood is 1, Rambo is 2, Rambo 3 is 3. He goes to Afghanistan, he gets Troutman out, he aids and helps who will pretty much become like the Taliban. But it was before, obviously all of that stuff. And we don't really know what happens to him. He drives off into the sunset with Colonel Troutman, and it could have been the last we see of him. But I guess Sylvester Stallone wasn't happy with that. So about 10 years ago, we had news that there was going to be a 4th installment. I don't even know what it's called. I'm going to call it Rambo 4 for the simplicity of this video. So Stallone, is going to direct it, and he's a very underrated director, I believe. He directed all the Rocky films except 1 and 5. And I think he's a great director. He directed Expendables 1, which is by far the best. I think sometimes you just can't be fucking arsed to direct. But anyway, he was going to direct it, and he was going to be in Burma. So, as when Rocky Balboa was announced, which was Rocky 6, a lot of people winced, including me. But then Rambo 3 kind of was just like alright, so we couldn't really ruin it. So we have Rambo 4, I think it's called John Rambo in some territories and just Rambo in others. But yeah, Rambo 4 meets, he's still in, I believe, Thailand, close to the border with Burma. And he's still kind of doing his thing for the monks, but he's, become quite bitter. And some Christian missionaries want his help to cross the border to smuggle Bibles into Burma. He says, you don't want to do that, and they do it anyway. And so someone hires a group of mercenaries, and he goes along to show them the way. Cut a short story, even shorter, it's a bloodbath. But it's kind of a good bloodbath, because the violence, a lot of people in the 80s said that in Rambo 2 and Rambo 3, the violence was glorified. And I didn't think the violence in Rambo 4 was glorified. I thought it was disgusting. I thought it was horrible. I thought that was the idea. People's limbs being blown off, and it looked very, very real. Kind of what violence in war would look like. And I thought, okay, so he's sort of redeemed the character. Um, he's redeemed the glorifying violence thing, because I don't believe it glorified the violence. And then at the end, he realizes, well, we don't have any words, but he looks at the Christian missionary girl that he's connected with, and I guess he catches a lift back to America with him, because he realizes he needs to go home. And the last scene, in a beautiful sort of full circle, is him with the instrumental theme from First Blood, walking the road in the green army jacket that we first meet him in, and he's found his way back to Ranch Rambo, or whatever it's called, the Rambo farm. And the last shot is him walking down the path. We don't know what's going to be waiting for him, whether it's an empty house, whether it's his father. Apparently, originally he wanted Charles Bronson to play Rambo's father, but I guess he died by that point, or whether that was just a thought in an interview, I don't know. But he found his way home, finally. The end. That was it. It was done. 1 and 4, they were the important ones. They were the great ones. 2 and 3 were kind of, of their time, 80s, mid 80s and late 80s, kind of cheesy, sort of shirtless, whatever. But 1 and 4, they were the good ones. And then we hear about this sort of Rambo 5, which is called Last Blood. So I thought, he's going to ruin it. He's going to ruin what he did with 4. He's milking it. But please, God, don't let him ruin it. Don't let him ruin it. If it sort of progresses the character and that kind of thing, it'll be fine. But please, don't ruin what you did so well in Rambo 4. You brought him home. You kind of gave him an optimistic ending, a happy ending. I think if you love the character of John Rambo, you wanted him to find peace. And all of these things kept happening that were sort of beyond his control. And he was a warrior, but he found his way home, and it was beautiful. As someone who grew up watching these films and was rooting for the guy, and just here I'll say that I think Stallone is a very underrated actor. For me, even when I was a kid, Rambo, I sort of grew up on Rambo and Rocky and the other stuff that he did around it. But as Rambo, he didn't have to say a word. And I knew that he was playing John Rambo because it was all behind his eyes. He looked nothing like Rocky. It was all behind the eyes. So I thought, well, it's a good actor if you can just tell, from his eyes what's going on. So anyway, definitely spoilers ahead for Last Blood. So I thought, Last Blood, okay, maybe he's not going to ruin it. And he's going to kill the character off, because the title implies that, Last Blood. Let's not let it just be a gimmick, because First Blood actually means something. First Blood is a phrase. They drew First Blood, not me. And they're calling this Last Blood, so he has to die. And if he's given a hero's death, it might not be ruined, because, So, yeah, I've never been so fucking depressed. So I went to see Last Blood today, and it started off really well. He was there on the farm. He's living with, it's not really explained, but an older lady who I assume maybe used to look after his father, or, whatever. And she's got, like, I don't know, a niece. It's really not explained very well, but it doesn't matter. There's a young girl, 17 or so, who he's become like a father to over the last 10 years. And she's sort of estranged from her dad, and she talks about wanting to go to Mexico and find him. Rambo says, don't do that. She obviously doesn't listen. And so she makes her way to Mexico, where, I leaned into my wife, and after her father rejects her, and her friend says, let's go and forget about it, and takes her to a nightclub, I said, she's going to be brutally raped any second now. She needs to be gang raped violently, because it just felt like, I didn't want that to happen, but it felt pretty kind of like, well, yeah, we know what's going to happen. She's going to meet a horrible death. So, she meets the horrible end, and the news gets back to John, and he gets in his van and he drives down to Mexico, and this is really where it gets pretty fucking disgusting. He's not killed by a group of Mexicans, but he's saved by he goes to try and find the girl. At this point, he can't find her, but the gang of 79 Mexican stereotypical, all holding machetes. Oh my God. I think if I was Mexican, I'd sue. It's a vile portrayal. I mean, it's like, you remember in the 70s when, a lot of people of color just used to play like muggers, and probably still do, but it's like, really? This is how you're gonna, in this sort of day and age of Trump, this is how you're gonna sort of yeah, okay. So it felt pretty uncomfortable. But he gets the shit beaten out of him. He gets his cheek scarred. Oh, I forgot there's a completely pointless bit of violence where he pulls somebody's bone out. It's fucking horrible. Now, anyway, so he gets the shit beaten out of him. This, reporter saves his life and takes him to a doctor. But he goes in, he finds the girl, his sort of daughter, his adopted daughter, if you will. And she's drugged up. She's had her face scarred. She's in a state. And rather than take her to the lady who helped heal him, or take her to a doctor or a hospital, he decides to stick her in his van and drive back to Arizona. Because, of course you would. He's in the van and he's trying to, stay alive, stay with me, and telling her how much he loves her. And, of course, she dies. Maybe because he didn't take her to a hospital. At this point, the plot makes absolutely no sense. There's a vile scene where he drives across the border, which is a thin fence, which is like a veiled plug for the fucking wall. I mean, I don't know what Stallone's politics are, but you wouldn't be, if you interpreted that as a kind of, Republicans and fucking Trump supporters will watch it and say, fuck yeah, we need the wall. We need a fucking wall, because he just drove through this little fence. And anyway, she dies. He takes her home, and his whatever housekeeper or whatever the fuck she is, leaves and does the Coco thing, and he sets some traps, and you're like, oh, they're sort of ripping off First Blood when he set the traps for the people in the woods. So, and he goes back to Mexico, and the violence is obscene, and it's completely pointless, and he cuts off someone's head. So they all come with him to the farm. They all follow him to the farm where he's got all these traps. But this time, the violence is absolutely repugnant, but I think it's supposed to be enjoyable. We have this really fucking awesome Doors song, which lyrically makes sense. No one here gets out alive. But we have this playing as he sort of fucking decapitates people, and people meet the most horrible deaths. And I'm a fan of Rambo 4, and that was blood-churningly violent. But the violence in this was just, it was pornographic. I mean, God, it was it was just horrible, cutting people's ankles off. The plot is dreadful. It's kind of half Taken and half Home Alone. Basically, Taken meets Home Alone. You've got Rambo, out of the war zone, and yeah, and it just ruined Rambo. It is horrible. It's too short. And now what I mean by that is that I don't want more of it. But the scenes, it's so fast. It's like 90 minutes. There's no character development. There's missing things. You know, his housekeeper lady just fucks off, and we never really hear from her again. This sort of friend who saves his life in Mexico, he just says, I want revenge, and you do too, if you were honest. So he goes and has his revenge. And as he very quickly kills this, 20, 30 Mexican bad guys, we have the final scene. And this is what really fucking absolutely, I'm really angry. But we have the final scene where he I think he's probably pinned to a wall, quite literally. And Rambo says, I want you to feel the pain that I felt when you and your men killed my whatever niece. So he cuts the guy's heart out. We see him cut the guy's heart out. Sure, the camera's at the side, but he's fucking carving, along in a line, and then he's fucking going down, and then he's going along again, and then he's going up, and he pulls the heart out, and it's like, dude, shoot him in the head. He's going to be dead in seconds. It was absolutely disgusting, completely pointless. And worse than that, Rambo doesn't die. Stallone doesn't even have the fucking balls to kill off Rambo. So, Rambo, so this guy's dead. Everyone's dead. The people he loves are dead, except the woman we don't know where she is. It's just a poor piece of cinema that's, in my opinion, completely ruined the positive, optimistic ending of Rambo 4. It's like, I'd compare it to the Deadpool, but this makes the Deadpool seem like a masterpiece. The Deadpool was Dirty Harry 5, kind of 4 decent Dirty Harry films and a 5th shit one. To say this is shit would be an understatement. This is appallingly bad. I've always had the Rambo films on DVD. I rebought them just last year on Blu-ray because I think the first 3 were like restored, restoration thing. So I promptly rebought them. I watched them with my wife about a year ago, sort of in the preparation for this. I'll never watch Last Blood again. Maybe there's a slightly better version in like an extended cut where they might put character scenes in it. I feel like it's 90 minutes because all they want is the box office. No reviews seem to be allowed until the day of release. We all know what that means, but I completely see now why. Because it's fucking dog shit. I've looked at reviews tonight, and they're pretty poor, so I'm not surprised. IMDb has user reviews, and for some reason it shows the best reviews first, and the reviews are just like calling the first, dozen or so, 10 out of 10, masterpiece. Anyone that calls this a masterpiece doesn't know what masterpiece means. It's a masterpiece of fucking shit. So I just wanted to talk about it, and I don't really know how this has gone on for 25 minutes. And if anybody is watching this, well, thanks. I just needed to vent. I've never done this, as you can see, because I'm recording it on my phone, on my couch, whilst watching Blu-ray bonus features from Local Hero, an altogether more lovely film. So I almost want there to be a Rambo 6, because or we've just got this horrible end to a sort of flawed but okay franchise. The worst thing, which I wanted to say at the very end, is the title Last Blood means nothing because, I think I have covered this, but he didn't kill him off. All we have is Rambo half dead, fucking 75 years old, sitting in a rocking chair saying, I'll remember the people that I loved. Great, good for you. So at the end of 4, we have an optimistic, positive ending where he might find peace, but then Stallone decided for the cash, and because he doesn't know when to quit Escape Plan 3, Escape Plan fucking 2, um, he made this dog shit. And dog shit is putting it kindly. So we have Rambo now, that our end memory of Rambo is that he's left on a chair dying, and then at the end of an awful montage of other films where you go, yeah, this was good, we have him riding away on a horse. So what? He's a happy ending? There's nothing happy about it. He's still alive. It's a meaningless life, and I fucking hated it. I hated, the first 15 minutes was great, but then Anyway, that's me done. I'm sorry to talk for so long. As I said, I expect maybe if I check my YouTube channel in like 6 weeks, this is going to have like 12 views, and I'll be like, 12 people watched that. So I just had to do it and now I've done it. I quite liked it, so I might do it again. One about The Last Jedi, a film which I love, but that's for another day. So yeah, don't watch Rambo Last Blood. Don't watch it. 4 can be the end, and what happens in this is like a bad nightmare. Oh god. Anyway, don't watch it. Pretty much watch anything. You watch Over the Top. Over the Top is a masterpiece of arm wrestling excellence compared to this. Like Stallone's worst films. I'd rather fucking watch that Oscar. What was it? A mafia comedy. I'd rather watch that. I only ever watched that once. Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. I'd rather watch that. I'd rather watch Expendables 3 and all its CGI shitness. Get Carter, Drive. I'm just thinking of like sort of subpar, low rent kind of Stallone films. This is honestly, as a lifelong Stallone fan, or since I was 10. I mean, when I was doing my English GCSE, I was the first year of GCSEs. Part of it was where you had to give this sort of talk to the class, and like I did it on Stallone, and I talked about he was born in Hell's Kitchen, and I talked about the reason he's got the droopy lip was because he was delivered by forceps and it severed some muscles in his mouth. I mean, I fucking knew everything about this guy. I followed his career. I went to see Rocky 4 14 times at the cinema. Creed and, Rocky Balboa and Creed 2 is a triumph. But this is just, he's ruined the character of Rambo. He's totally ruined it. Unless he quickly puts out a Rambo 6 and redeems him. And I almost kind of want him to, because don't leave us with this shit. Don't leave us with Rambo half dead in a fucking rocking chair remembering his dead friends. I mean, it's the most depressing, downbeat ending a film could ever have. And a film about this character that somehow raised the bar in 4 to, finally, you might get a little bit of peace. Sly. Dude, you fucking ruined it. You ruined it. I'd say comments welcome, but I'm not going to get any comments. But thoughts welcome on whatever. I'm not really doing this to try and get whatever. I'm just doing it for me. So I did it, and that's it. I did it. Fuck it. I did it. Bye.